Those of you ndị Igbo, ndị na-amalụ their value, their quality, and what they represent as onye Igbo, IGBO, kiri ife onyonyo a, ka ị nụrụ ife onye ọcha na-ekwu maka ngị bụ onye Igbo. Ekirichara m ife onyonyo a, alụ ajụ m oyi, ọ dị nkọ ntibe mkpu, alụ m niile adị ka ma dị incapacitated. That is how interesting ife onye ọcha na-ekwu maka ngị bụ onye Igbo. The history about you nke your pastors, your political leaders na-achọrọ ịgba gị, ọ ya ka onye ọcha from America na-agba ngị bụ onye Igbo. Ngị bụ onye Igbo na-amalụ your value na-achọwa Nigeria. Kiri ife onyonyo a to understand who you are. Ebube na-eso ndị Igbo ka ndị a ji kpọ gị asị. They are jealous of you.
There comes a time when truth must rise from the ashes of silence. A time when the voice of the past breaks through the walls of history and shouts into the present. That time is now. That voice is the voice of the Igbo people, a people so powerful in spirit, so unbreakable in will, that even the mighty British Empire trembled at the sound of their name. They didn't fear the Igbo because they were violent. No. They feared the power of their mind, the strength of their unity, and the depth of their culture. The British Empire, with all its guns and global power, was shaken by a tribe that refused to bow, refused to break, refused to be erased. You see, the Igbo were never just another group of people to be colonized. They were a force of resistance, a pillar of self-rule, a threat to imperial lies. The Igbo believed in freedom long before the West defined it. They believed in justice before the colonizer could spell it. They governed themselves with systems so sophisticated that even European scholars were stunned. They didn't need kings appointed by foreigners. They chose their own leaders. They didn't need foreign religion to find God. They walked with him in spirit and in truth. That is what frightened the empire. Not their weapons, but their wisdom. Not their violence, but their vision. So the British tried to rewrite their story. They tried to brand them rebels, savages, pagans, because they feared their truth. But you cannot bury a people whose roots go deeper than any empire's foundation. You cannot silence a voice that carries the thunder of ancestors and the fire of future generations. The Igbos stood tall when others knelt. They fought back when others surrendered. They dared to say no to injustice even when the price was blood. That is why they were sold in chains across the Atlantic. Because colonizers feared what would happen if the world saw their strength. That is why the world has been silent about their legacy, because their existence exposes the lies of colonial narratives. But the truth is rising now. The descendants of the Igbo are rising. The world will know that the empire feared the Igbo because the Igbo were never meant to be ruled. They were meant to lead. So if you are of Igbo blood or African descent, or if your spirit yearns for justice, stand tall, walk proud. The legacy they tried to silence is roaring louder than ever. You are not the forgotten, you are the foundation. You are not a shadow of history, you are the light that history tried to hide. And when you walk with that knowledge, with that power in your chest, no empire, past or present, can ever make you feel small again. The British Empire feared the Igbo not for their weapons, but for their wisdom, self-governance, and unbreakable spirit. In a world where empires thrived on control, domination, and submission, the Igbo people represented everything that colonial powers could not predict, could not contain, and could not conquer. They were a people whose strength came not from brute force, but from an inner fire, the kind that refuses to be extinguished. The British were not intimidated by armies or battalions when they encountered the Igbo. They were shaken by a culture that had crafted a society where freedom, equity, and intelligence ruled before the colonizers even arrived. The Igbo did not depend on foreign systems to dictate their way of life. Their communities were built on sophisticated forms of decentralized government where every voice mattered. The elders were respected, the youth were empowered, and leadership was earned, not bought, not inherited, and certainly not forced by any outside throne. This model of society undermined the very foundation of colonialism, which was built on the lie that Africa needed saving, structuring, and civilizing. But here stood the Igbo, already organized, already advanced, already powerful. Their knowledge of the land, of trade, of spirituality, and of communal governance made them a threat to the imperial narrative. Colonizers feared what would happen if other African tribes followed the Igbo example. What if the continent realized it didn't need to be ruled? What if the people realized they already had power, structure, and the divine right to lead themselves? The British Empire understood that the real danger wasn't in the Igbo lifting a sword, but in them lifting their heads high, refusing to bow, and declaring, "We are not yours to conquer." To break the Igbo, the colonizers knew they had to destroy not just bodies, but identity. They attacked their names, their languages, their faith, and their institutions. They labeled them as troublemakers and resistors, not because they were wrong, but because they were right in all the